Hi, everyone. My name is Jess, and I'm here today with Riley. And today we're going to be talking on this podcast about our Intruder camera system and how we thought would be a good way to kind of introduce the product and to talk about it is in a question and answer format. So I'm going to go through a series of questions that I would say are asked every time we talk about our Intruder to a customer. These are the ones that they ask. Something I wanted to also note is that we will not be talking about pricing on this podcast. So if you do wish to get the current pricing on our Intruder camera system, please email sales@caninestorm.com and we will be able to provide you with current pricing and additional information. Additionally, you can also give us a call and it would be our pleasure to talk about the product as well with you. So let's get this started. Let's start with question number one. And that is, what is the Canine Storm Intruder camera system?
The Canine Storm Intruder camera system is a back-mounted canine camera that's designed to allow you to see what your dog sees, but more importantly, how they're reacting to what they see, smell, and hear. It's extremely easy to use by design, and it helps extend the dog's natural capabilities by having it on.
So who's using this camera? Is it specifically for military teams or specifically for police? Who is using this product right now, and who is it kind of intended for when we started building it?
The Intruder is designed for anybody who's doing online or offline searches that needs a visual of their dog at a distance.
So at the beginning, I would say that the customers that have asked us to produce this, to make this for them, would have been definitely military teams. But now it has no longer become that whatsoever. It has definitely become equally used by not only the military, but also the police and other departments, law enforcement communities.
Really, anytime a dog rounds a corner, the question that you're asking yourself is, what is he experiencing? What is the dog telling you? The whole point of having a camera on the dog is to be able to read the dog's body language. So when the dog rounds a corner, you can see now he's in some type of scent cone and he's able to determine that there's human odor behind a door or something like that. And you'll be able to tell that from the body language that your dog is giving, which is the whole point of having the camera on the dog in the first place.
For me, I always find it a kind of a funny story when Jim talks about his days as a canine handler in the past. And literally it was a situation where he would have the dog on the line. The dog would go into a room on a 30-foot, 40-foot line, and he would round the corner and Jim would be in a position where he would not see obviously what's going on. But then his leader would say, "Jim, what's the dog doing?" And the funny thing is obviously he didn't know. And I feel like every handler in that situation who doesn't have an Intruder camera is in a position where they actually do not know what the dog is doing. Cause you don't have x-ray vision. You can't see what, through the walls. Everyone is using their best guess. You do not know what your dog has caught or what he's doing unless you can actually visually see it. So it is just a prediction at the end of it. So what types of other scenarios would you say that this would be valuable for?
So it's a really good point. As soon as that dog rounds a corner and you lose visual sight of him, at that point you are working completely blind to what he is doing. So unless you hear him to start barking or if you hear someone screaming, there really is no way to know what your dog has found. So the Intruder, it alleviates those problems by now giving you the visual. So when your dog rounds a corner, you have their body language. You're able to tell what they're doing in that moment so you can provide reliable feedback to yourself and to your team and make decisions, split-second decisions, much more competently because you now have that visual. So the product really, for anybody who's working where your dog rounds a corner and you're not having a visual contact of him because you need to be a safe distance away, this product is exactly what you need.
So essentially it comes down to this product is for every scenario. Even if it's in a scenario that you don't think you're going to need your Intruder for, put it on your dog and train with it. It is eventually going to become muscle memory for you to be looking at this image and for your dog to be able to wear the camera as well. When we talk to handlers, they say to me, "Jess, at first I didn't know how I would be integrating the system. And now I'm at the point where I 100% heavily rely on this equipment. I don't know how people do their job without it." So let's talk a little bit about what the kit contains when you purchase the Canine Storm Intruder. The first one being a transmitter. So this is the part that the dog is wearing on his back. This is about 2 pounds. The next item being a receiver. This is the monitor. This is the part that the handler is wearing. Receiver pouch. 4 battery magazines. 4-pin battery charger, a BNC connector, and it all comes nicely packaged in a hard case. So now that you have everything in your kit, how do you mount this thing onto the vest?
How do you mount that? I think this is the number one most overlooked question when it comes to purchasing any type of canine equipment, especially when it comes to cameras, is how do you physically mount it? What we came up with was the Intruder Slide Lock Rail, which is a completely stable base, fully integrated into the Canine Storm vest that allows handlers to put on and take off the intruder in a fraction of a second using the slide lock rail. Because we make both the soft goods side of things, which is the vest, and the electronics, the two systems, they work together, which allows them to have the most stable base possible and to not sway side to side or have any type of movement on the camera when it's actually fully installed.
Right, you did just mention that you need an aerial insertion vest in order to use the intruder camera. Something else that's interesting to note, though, is to give it a little more capacity. The intruder camera does not just have to be used on the vest. There is a product that we make called the Norse pole that allows you to take the camera off the vest of the dog's back and then to integrate it onto essentially a very long pole that extends around 8.5 feet, that allows you to use it for more capabilities than just on your dog. So for example, some handlers are like, they tell me that their budget for canine is a little bit lower than that of their SWAT department counterparts. And this allows the product to be integrated within both. So potentially this can now be purchased under the SWAT budget instead of just the canine budget, knowing that you can now integrate it in a variety of ways, not just on the dog.
What handlers were actually doing in Norway is they were taking the intruder off of the vest and they were raising it up and they were putting it into like attics and crawl spaces. The inherent danger with this obviously was there was always the risk that they were going to get their head blown off if they shoved their hand up there. So they said to us, is there any way that you could create a pole mount system so that we can just further the uses of the intruder? And the Norse pole is what we came up with.
So we now know that the intruder can be used on the Norse pole. It also sits on the back of the dog. Why is it mounted on the back of the dog and not, for example, on the dog's head?
When it comes to cameras for dogs, the whole point of this is to allow you to see what your dog sees and how they're reacting to what they see, smell, and hear.
Let's unpack that a little bit. So you're saying that it allows you to see what the dog sees because it gives you a visual ahead of the dog that allows you to see what the dog sees.
Yes.
That's taken care of. Now, let's talk about the next part that you mentioned. So allows you to see what the dog sees, but more importantly, how they're reacting to what they see, smell, and hear. Why is it important to see how the dog is reacting?
When it comes to the intruder, we're not trying to turn the dog into a robot. That is a little bit of a misnomer when it comes to the integration of electronics on the dogs. What we're doing is we're just extending your dog's natural capabilities that he already has. Picture this. Your dog goes up to a door. All you can see is that door if you have a camera mounted on the dog's head. You'll miss the body language that the dog is clearly indicating that you know from doing your training and from your lifetime of work with them that they're not indicating this is a closed door. They're indicating that there's somebody behind that closed door. So it's getting the full picture of what your dog is reacting to what they see, smell, and hear. That's the importance of the intruder. So when it comes to the camera system, you're not doing anything differently than you've already done. You're just able to see it from a different vantage point yourself.
And I think that's really important to note because sometimes when we do demos, it's the very first time that the handler has this product on their dog and has the receiver in their hands. And they essentially stage it so that there is a bad guy hiding in a room in a huge building. And for me, what's really interesting is when the handlers say to me, before the dog even gets to the guy who's hiding, they say, he's found him. Oh, he's locked in. He's found him. He's found him. How do you know he's found him if you don't see the bad guy on the screen? You know he's found him because you understand the language of your dog's body that you have seen an infinite amount of times throughout training and through real life scenarios. And that is what we're saying when we mean this camera allows you to see what your dog sees, but more importantly, how they're reacting to what they see, smell, and hear, because they are telling a story constantly with their body language. And you know that language already because it's your dog and you've been with him for so long. So I think that is a big, important part of what that means.
What this means also, it means that the learning curve is very, very minimal when it comes to actually implementing the product into what you're doing, because you've already laid the groundwork of understanding your dog and learning to speak that language. Now it's just getting used to checking in on what he's doing from a distance and not visually seeing him in your own line of sight.
Which is giving you a far bigger picture and allowing you to have a lot more information to make better decisions. So now that we've talked about that a little bit, what is the actual like field of vision of the Intruder? Like what do you see on your monitor when this is working?
The Intruder is a full screen image. So what you see on the video is what you would basically see in real life. It's not a wide angle field of vision. It's not fisheye. There's no type of distortion in the image. The image that you see is precise and exact to what it would be in real life.
So on your monitor, what you're going to be seeing is the back of the dog's head, as well as the perspective of what's in front of him. It's not showing what's behind him, what's to the left and right of him, unless he's moving to those areas, which I think is very valuable because when the dog is indicating or when he's going towards something, that's the point of view that you want to see. His nose is telling him something. He's going towards a target that he has been trained to find, which is why I think it's so important to just be focusing on that section instead of things that aren't important at that moment.
You have to imagine too, the dogs are moving quickly. Your dog moves rapidly through a scenario. They go up the stairs, they go around a corner, they spin, they move. Too much information is just simply too much information. It's information overload for yourself. It's one vantage point. It's simple to use, and it's very easy once you, again, get into high pressure scenarios to not have so much information that you're not able to make use of what am I actually seeing.
Yeah, so you have the information that you need so that you can understand what's going on in that moment. So because it's, like you mentioned, the dog is moving really fast, how's the stability like for the camera?
The camera stability comes from a couple things. Number one is the slide lock rail, which we've already touched on, the fact that there's no movement of Velcro, there's no tie downs, there's no bungees, there's nothing where the camera system itself can sway and move on the back. That makes a big difference.
And something that I want to note on that also is if you are zip tying things or bungeeing things onto a vest, it is kind of different every time. And in our scenario, because it just slides onto the rail, it is consistently the same stability every time because you're not worried, did I tighten that enough or did I Velcro that hard enough? It's predictable.
Number two is something that is, again, extremely overlooked when it comes to the integration of the Intruder on the vest, and that's the ballast that the vest actually provides for the camera system. The Intruder weighs roughly 2 pounds. So when you put that on the top of your dog, it's imperative that you have some type of counterbalance at the bottom to prevent it from moving over and keeling and swaying. The Canine Storm vest, it provides the weight that's required underneath the dog's body using the underbelly impalement protection, the weight of the vest, as well as the integration of the slide lock rail. It provides for the utmost camera stability possible on the Intruder itself.
Stability obviously being a huge, very important part to get an image as accurately as possible. Another thing that does the same is video feed delay and latency. Something that we're very proud of is that our camera does not have any lag or any latency whatsoever. Can you imagine if it was maybe 3 or 2 seconds behind?
All lag is a delay between what you see and what you get. The Intruder has 0 of that, which is extremely important.
I always think of like live news scenarios when like the reporters are like at riots or something like that. And then the weather person says, now, Kathy, let's bring it back to you and seeing what's live on ground. And then she's just staring. Kathy's just staring at the screen for 5 seconds before she says, thank you very much. Now, like what's live over here behind me? So that's kind of the situation of what you never want. And especially if you're making life and death decisions or very quick decisions that are extremely important, that is when lag has to be at an absolute 0 so that you can make the best decisions possible.
If you don't have an extra half a second, or if there's even a quarter of a second
that's taken
delay,
away from you,
it's like a lifetime. It seems like it's nothing, but in those moments, that is an actual lifetime between what you can do and what you can miss. And so you want to be able to have that real-time feedback instantaneously to give yourself those extra milliseconds that are required to make an informed decision to keep you and your dog and the rest of your team safe.
So while we're talking about the transmitters still, we're talking about the stability, we're talking about the video feed, let's look at a question that is asked often, especially because dogs get into everything and they find a way to get stuck in everything. While wearing the transmitter on the back, is it possible for the dog to get caught or stuck underneath something while wearing it?
The Intruder is spring-loaded and articulates 180 degrees both forward and backward. So if your dog runs under something, which they're bound to do, the arm will snap back to allow them to pass through the obstacle. And then once they get to the end, it'll go forward again, popping right back up into place to give you the viewpoint that you need.
So we see the importance of this camera and all the things that it can do. What's the range like? Is this a line of sight camera?
The range on the Intruder is incredible. When it comes to range, you're looking at roughly 1,000 feet through multiple concrete barriers. So what do I mean by that when I say like through multiple concrete barriers? When it comes to calculating the distance, the main thing that we're concerned about is being able to see your dog when you're not in the line of sight. Line of sight is, I would say in a lot of ways, it's a little bit of a marketing buzzword that electronics companies throw out there to justify camera systems not working in ranges that are difficult. And by this, I mean, for a canine camera, the whole point is to see your dog when you can't see them visually in a line of sight. So if you have a camera that goes 10 miles line of sight, but it goes 5 feet around a corner, is it valuable for you? And I would argue that it isn't, because you're not getting the feedback in the environment that you're working in that you need.
Like mud huts, that is concrete buildings, that is downtown scenarios and in houses, up and down floors, all of those types of areas.
When there's a lot of interference, these type of areas, you want the transmitter to be able to send your signal out and to be able to be received from the Intruder receiver at a distance away from your dog. So line of sight, no. The camera, we do not market it as a line of sight. Similar, if anybody watched the Canine Storm Vest features video, we talked about breathability when it comes to the vest, how that was a marketing thing that humans applied to canines. It's completely false. That's a myth. There's no breathability needed in canine equipment. When it comes to line of sight, it's the same thing with cameras. Line of sight is useless in a canine application, because if you have line of sight of your dog, you do not need to be looking at the monitor. You would just look at your dog. Canine Storm Intruder range test. We have the Intruder set up here in our testing area. We're going to walk it to the normal range that we would normally go to test all the Intruders to see if they meet the standard that we have. So let's give it a walk. Snowy day today, I tell you. Okay, so we're at the edge of the compound. We're just trying to take a video of a video, which can be a little bit challenging for the glare. So this is 250 feet. You can see the people in the back moving around. Perfect reception from our system, which is now way over there. We're gonna keep going. So now we're at about 420 feet. See, still perfect reception. People are moving in the distance, and this is a difficult scenario. Look how far we have to go through all of these shipping containers. It's a lot of steel in less than ideal conditions. So let's keep moving. Now we are at 600 feet. The next range test. We're going through all the steel shipping containers. There we go. Excellent reception. At 600 feet, again, we can still see our staff in the background working. So that's 600 feet. Look at the environment that we're in. We got an overpass, all these shipping containers. We have concrete manufacturer right here. This tree right here, this is our 1,000 foot benchmark. So bring the Intruder up. And you can still see near perfect picture at 1,000 feet. 1,000 feet. We are all the way over there is where the factory is. Way out in the distance. And we still have completely usable picture at 1,000 feet through multiple barriers. So let's keep going. Okay, we've reached the end of our benchmark test. This is where private property actually starts for a railway, so we can't physically go any farther. But we're gonna stand right here We're at 1,200 feet. Now you can see we're starting to get extended ranges, but the picture is still usable. We can find in certain areas that we can still use this picture. Near perfect reception at 1,200 feet. Look at the environment. We're underneath an overpass. The intruder has to go through all the steel structures of those shipping containers, all the area of the buildings, and we're still able to get reception. It's incredible. So again, ranges, when we're talking about range, extended distances, it's unreal. So we're gonna walk it back now. All the shipping containers. Count them. It goes on and on and on. Full row. This is not a line of sight camera. Intruder allows you to be a safe distance away from your dog to see what your dog sees, how they're reacting to what they see, smell, and hear. To give you the extra time needed to make an informed decision to greatly increase both dog and officer safety.
What is the runtime on the camera system? So it can go far, but how long does it run for?
So runtime, you'll be looking at about 30 to 40 minutes in the transmitter and about 2.5 to 3 hours in the receiver. The transmitter is the workhorse of the system. This is where all the energy draw is coming from. The receiver uses a lot less energy to operate. The system comes with 4 batteries, 3 batteries in the transmitter you would use to 1 battery in your receiver.
And that's actually important to note about batteries, because when we designed this camera, we were told that if a mission is more than 15 minutes, it's a problem. We do not need this product to work for more than 15 minutes. So just because we wanted to be 100% sure, we doubled that. So that's why our transmitter is able to work anywhere between 30 and 40 minutes. That being said, yes, the mission is that amount of time, but how long does it take to train for a scenario like this? And that can mean weeks and weeks and months on an 8 to 10 hour day, a schedule. So something that we never considered until after is encouraging handlers to purchase more batteries for training. For example, we have something called a 10-pin battery charger. So instead of charging 4 batteries at the same time, you can charge 10 at the same time. And that allows you to have batteries that are fantastic, always on the go for training, ready to go. And then you can have kind of game day batteries and also training batteries so that they're constantly ready to use and good to go.
Anybody who's watching this video that currently has an intruder system and you notice that the runtime on your batteries is, say, anywhere less than half an hour, and I'm talking like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, you put the battery in and it dies within 30 seconds, this is indicative that the lithium needs to be replaced on those batteries. So just like with your cell phone or your laptop, the lithium in the batteries, it doesn't last for forever. It needs to be replaced over about a span of 600 cycles, roughly about 1.5 to 2 years. Typically, the batteries will last, depending on how much you use them. You use them more, of course, it's going to deplete the lithium reserves quicker. If you use them less, the batteries will stay stronger a little bit longer. But keep in mind, if you're not getting these types of runtimes, please contact us. We'll have to get you set up with some new batteries, and it's going to make your system operate way better, and you'll be much happier with not having to change a battery out every 5 seconds.
Again, it doesn't have anything to do with the actual intruder camera, because we don't have like a ticking time bomb in there where the product doesn't work after a certain amount of years. The battery is what needs to be replaced in order to give your intruder a brand new sense of longevity and a little more mojo. Maybe let's talk about like how the system operates.
When it comes to the batteries, the intruder and the receiver operate on both the same batteries as we've just touched on. So the batteries can go in one of 4 directions. You can't put the battery in accidentally backwards. So this is, again, important when you're working at nighttime in the dark. You can grab a battery. There's knurled edges on the battery that indicate which way that it's facing. So it allows you to put it in the correct direction. You cannot put it in backwards. That's extremely important. So once you get the intruder batteries in place, To turn the system on, there's a knob that says off and on both, again, the transmitter and the receiver. It's identical. You twist the knob from off to on, and now your system is up and running. That's it. That really is the whole training course on it. You guys are now experts on it. You can go teach somebody else on how to use it. But it's easy. It's simple. There is no load up screens. There's no menus. There's no touch screens. There's nothing more that's required to get this system running. It's off, it's on, it's either working or it isn't.
So training then looks very easy. It essentially is putting it on your dog, turning it on, and running different scenarios so that you as a handler are more comfortable checking in with the receiver. It's not going to influence the dog whatsoever. Like, it sounds like it's completely easy to use, and you can start working out with it literally in the 5 minutes after you get it.
The learning curve is extremely low when it comes to actual implementation of the product.
What if you are racing through water and the Intruder gets wet?
For water, the Intruder is IP67 rated, meaning it's completely waterproof up to a 1 meter. It's dustproof, shatter resistant, the whole 9 yards.
So it can get wet. That we've determined that it's waterproof. Can it be used when it's dark outside? Like, are you still going to be able to get a good image on your monitor if it is dark outside?
The Intruder has 16 IR lights built into the head of the camera that will turn on and transition seamlessly from light to dark without you having to touch a thing. So if your dog is moving, say he goes down a set of staircase into a basement
where it's pitch black,
and you can't see, the IR lights that kick on automatically, you will not be able to tell on your monitor if there's lights externally on because the IR lights are just that strong.
Now that we've talked about the transmitter, let's give a little more attention to the monitor of the system. So can the monitor be viewed on a cell phone? Does it connect to a mesh network? How does it work with all of that?
The Intruder is a standalone system, and this is, again, by design. So the Intruder is an encrypted system, 30 bits of encryption from the transmitter to the receiver. It's standalone, so it can operate in any environment that you go to. You don't need to set up a Wi-Fi network or some type of other system to make it work. You have the system as a standalone product, and it'll work no matter what. And
that's why we built it that way, is so that you don't have to feel like you're depending on other things to work for your Intruder to work. It is going to work every single time, regardless of if the other products or if Wi-Fi or if anything else is available at that time.
Having said this, the Intruder receiver, once it decodes the transmitter, we do provide a BNC out cable, which you can then attach to a variety of different devices. We do not provide these devices just because everyone's system is different and everyone uses different technology. So if you have a desire to do those types of things, talk with your tech team. There's solutions that will allow you to then hook your system up to additional networks as long as it's integrated with the products that you use.
Which means that many people can watch it that way. If you do have a system that our Intruder connects with to a different format that allows other people to see it. That being said, another way to allow other people to see, multiple people to see what's going on your monitor, is to simply purchase more monitors. So there are channels on both the Intruder transmitter as well as the monitor, and it's kind of like a TV station where if you have 5 monitors but everyone's viewing channel 4, you're all getting the feed of what's happening on channel 4.
Commonly, the handler will obviously have one system, but for SWAT applications, a lot of times the SWAT team leader will have one, or they'll put a second monitor on the back of the canine handler so that team members behind him can see. There's a million ways that you can set this up. It just depends what works for you and your team and how you want to go about operating.
One last thing about the monitor, can you record what's going on?
The Intruder does not have any internal recording capabilities by design. This was done intentionally in the event that, say, a dog was to be compromised downrange, there would be no way for any type of memory to be recalled. And when it comes to recording, that's not really the main purpose of the Intruder. It's a live action camera. The Intruder is meant for the handler to get live time feedback from what their dog is doing. It's a completely different purpose. Having said this, if you do want the capabilities to record, using the BNC cable that's provided, you can hook up additional external recording devices of your choosing.
So that's it. Thank you so much for listening. We hope that this was a very informative video and that if you didn't know about the product, it taught you a little bit about it. And if you do already have the product, it kind of opened your mind to some other capabilities. If you have any questions or if you want a current pricing, feel free to email sales@caninestorm.com or our office number, and it will be either myself or Riley that will be able to help. Thank you for everything once again. Storm through anything and have an awesome day.
Talk soon. Bye for now.